Welcome to Haunt Topic Radio, the podcast for haunters by haunters. These are our scary visions.
Welcome back, Haunter, to another episode of Haunt Topic Radio. Are you doing everything that you can on your marketing? Are you doing everything you can to get people through your doors? What are you missing? What's that missing link that's going to increase your attendance, increase your revenue 10, 20%, maybe even more? Sometimes it just takes that little tweak. You never know what it is, but once you find it, it's like a gold nugget. In this episode, we get Philip Hernandez on from Haunted Attraction Network, and we throw a bunch of questions at him, and he answers all of them. We talk about press releases, we talk about media nights, we talk about social media influencers, we talk about marketing, advertising. This was a good one. So if you weren't there live, we have it here for you. Maybe next time you can come and ask questions yourself. It's never too early or too late to start your marketing plan, get your stuff ready. If you're opening up in October, start now, because there's a lot of stuff to do before you get there. And if you can't do it all by yourself, find someone that will help you. Make sure you check out everything the Haunted Attraction Network has to offer. Philip's all over Facebook and Instagram and I don't know where else, YouTube. He covers a lot of trade shows and does a lot of things out there and makes a lot of cool videos. So go check out Haunted Attraction Network. Let's roll into it. Get a notebook. This one's full of gold. Our Masterclass Ask the Expert session with Philip Hernandez.
That's watching who you are, what you do, and what you've been up to over the past year.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Philip. I run the Haunted Attraction Network. I'm also the CEO of Gantom Lighting and Controls, and I co-host Green Tagged Theme Park in 30, a weekly theme park insights podcast with Scott Swenson, who many of you also know. And I also am a freelance journalist and marketer. So I do freelance services. I have haunt clients. I also contribute to Attractions Magazine and Park Magazine and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so it's just been busy the last few years. Obviously, the haunt season, I went out and did video content, and reporting content all over the world in, the US and I guess the US and Asia and a little bit of Canada, so maybe not Europe, kind of gave Europe a break and went to those other areas to do reporting on Halloween this year. And then we went through Transworld. I also work for Transworld. I help them out a little bit with their media and content. And so I also did produce the Oscars this year, the HAA Awards. And so I've just been, it feels like things did not get any less busy. So it was like Halloween season and you were like, every day it's like you stock up. I just buy pallets of Monster and then like noodles and you get through like haunt season, right? And then like after haunt season, I die for a month or so. You get through Christmas
You're
haunts.
not cooking your ramen in the Monster, are you?
Yeah, well, I tried it, but the problem is you can't heat up the Monster. That's the real problem, so you gotta like take it separate. It's best served cold, let me tell you. Yeah. So haunt season, then Christmas haunt season, right? And then you get a little bit of a break kind of in January, but then it's Transworld prep. And then since Transworld has just been like editing, nonstop. And then, keeping up with all the other content and the jobs and all that. So yeah, a lot of things.
How much video do you produce for any specific haunt on average?
Oh my God. I have no idea. I think it really depends on the individual project, right? So I went out with Woods of Terror and did some work with Erica and the team there. And that one was primarily, like media services and whatnot. But with Hush, which is one of my long-term clients, that is like they want like a vertical video every day, like that they're open. And so that's like a lot of vertical content. And they also want, horizontal content and influencer wrangling and PR. I mean, for them, it's like the whole thing. So it really just ranges. If I'm just going to cover them myself, then typically it will be like a YouTube horizontal video, and then it will be accompanied by, maybe two or three vertical videos. So I think each haunt you're looking at like, yeah, at least one long form video and then multiple short form video assets. Yeah.
What?
Now you're talking about influencer wrangling. How do you go about doing that? And is that something that you would recommend just somebody at a haunt doing themselves or
That is complicated. It might be something like it might be if anyone in the chat has a specific question about it, it might be a good way to answer their question at the same time as I'm explaining this. So please put in questions if you have them. But the influencer topic is interesting because I think in the beginning, I think it just I always tell people to take a few steps back and remember that marketing has not changed. You know, it looks like everything has changed, but really nothing's changed. It's like we talked about with haunted houses, right? Like haunted houses, it's still about the physical environment and the interaction between the guest and the story and the actors, right? It's all that whole, it's still that physical thing. It's been that way, it's been that way for decades, right? I think the same thing is true with marketing. The tactics are new, but it's the same idea of marketing is making sure that you get your message in front of the right person at the right time. And the medium maybe has changed. And so I think that people think of like the influencer thing. I don't know what preconceptions they have, but I think at this point, what you should be thinking about with influencers is you treat them like you would paid media effectively. And so whether that be that you're paying them a fee and you're putting them under a contract, which is generally what I recommend, put them under a contract and put them in some sort of paid agreement because then you can utilize the assets that they make from you. Otherwise, then you would be paying in terms of just like hosting them, right? I mean, so there's some sort of like you think of them in some sort of paid way, in the same way that in the beginning, well, oh my God, like 15 years ago or something, I mean, you could just post stuff organically on Facebook and on the other platforms, and that's not the case anymore. Like anything that you're doing is paid. Like not only are you're paying your team member and you're paying in some way a staff cost to create the content. But then ideally you would be also paying to take the best performing content and turn it into ads because still the best converting thing you have out there is going to be your paid advertising, like your search query words, your turning your ad into taking something and turning it into an ad on TikTok and using, cart purchasing tokens, all that. Like that's still going to be that's still going to be like your highest performing. And then I think influencing from that, it depends on your goals as a platform because influencers are all over the board, right? Just like again, just we take it back to our original marketing, right? Right person, right time. Who is the right person, right? What is the right time? That's the term. Who the right person is depends on the goal that you have, And so if the goal is to sell tickets, so then, that's very different from the goal of just getting brand awareness. So I think that all then trickles down to the influencers, which is just one tactic. And that would be, that would be like, are you going to try and get a Attractions 360? That's not really going to sell you tickets, but it's going to get you brand awareness, or you're going to try and get the local person who has a much, much smaller audience, but the people are actually going to buy a ticket and go.
Mhm.
So you're lit. So, oh, I see some questions. Okay. So, yes,
So one from
Erica.
Erica,
Yeah.
an average range for rates for contracting influencers if they don't have personal rates set up.
Yeah.
What?
So there's not an easy answer to this because I think a lot of people are still trying to figure it out. And also because the metrics keep changing, right? So even just a few years ago, it used to be you could judge an influencer based off of their audience size. And that's no longer the case. I mean, that's like, I'd say in the marketing world, that's relatively old news. I mean, that's been about 2 years old. But I think now, I think more and more people are kind of waking up to that. But effectively, what happened is the algorithms have been changing, and there's a lot of reasons they've been changing. But basically, I'll give you a brief background. So like it used to be, right, that you would add a friend on Facebook and then you would see the friends, right, that you are friends with. You would see their statuses. And similar on YouTube, you would subscribe to a channel and then you would see stuff based on what you subscribe to. But there's a notion that started off in YouTube and then kind of flowed into the rest of the media ecosystem. The notion is that instead of, basically they could tell you what you like more than you could tell them, right? And that became the notion. It became more like less of you curating your feed and them deciding what they think you like and putting that in front of your feed. So, YouTube has different words for this, but basically they're calling it like the right video for the right person is kind of what they're they redid it too. So they're kind of like trying to show you the right video. So no two, so that would mean no two persons like, video suggestions or feeds are the same. So now that that's trickled through like all the media ecosystem, you can see now why numbers are less important, which going back to influencers, which is what makes it difficult actually to find a price and to understand which influencers to work with, because you can't really use their subscriber count as a metric. So you're trying to figure out, you can use engagement, but even then, like I think a lot of people try and tout engagement. Like I don't really care that somebody comments on their video. I care they buy a ticket. Right?
Yeah.
And these are not the same thing necessarily, right? So, um, so so the short answer is, Erica, that it's hard, and I think that you need to have a budget on your own side, and then kind of you can again the art of negotiation. I would have a budget that you kind of have internally, and then I would maybe like if they don't have a number, you could offer a number that's maybe like half of the budget, and that gives you room to negotiate, and then you can kind of like see if they hedge it up or down, but ultimately, again, back to your media goals, the budget needs to work for you. I can give you examples. That's as best as I can do. So, for example, at Hush, there's several local influencers that I love working with. And my criteria for them is, do they literally live in the metro area that we are trying to get people from? Like that, they have to live in that area. Their content has to be all about that area. It's okay if it's food, right? It's okay if it's just vibes. It's okay if it's whatever, but like, because we have bars. And so that's what I'm looking for. And then I'm looking to see that they create original content that has some sort of like, not necessarily a narrative, but like basically I want to know they're going to say, we're here at Hush Haunt, right? Because some influencers just like they post random shit and you have no idea. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear, but they post random stuff. You don't know like where it is or whatever. So I want these things. I want the quality of the content. I want them to be in the area, and I do want them to have some sort of like baseline engagement. So I don't care about their numbers. I care more that they're getting views, but they're getting views, and that whether or not the comments or whatever. And then you just test them. And you can do this by giving them a discount code, or you can give them a link, or you can just set up a schedule, and you could say your post is going to drop on this day, and then you can monitor your ticket sales. There's plenty of ways to do it. Sometimes they won't do the codes, any of that. They don't like to, so you can find other ways to do that. But what I would say is, for haunt stuff, because haunts are in entertainment and people want to do them, that means you generally don't have to pay as much, right? If it's like a medical company, or if it's like insurance or whatever, those are harder things, to get videos about. But in this case, I would say that with a micro influencer, you would be expecting to pay anywhere between 150 and 300 or 400 for somebody who's in the 10,000 follower to like 20 or 30, in that range. That's what you would expect to pay. Now, if you do pay them, I would like 100% get a contract and see if you can put as much as you can in there. Can you negotiate for story mentions? Can you negotiate for link mentions? Can you negotiate to get rights to that content so that, say they make this thing and it goes viral, then can you take that and turn it into an ad on a different platform, like on TikTok, and then you can use that as an ad. And what that does is it saves you, like now you don't have to hire a videographer, you don't have to hire an editor. You're already getting the influencer, and they're split testing content for you. But in order to get that, you do need to pay them. You need to have it in the contract, and there's all that stuff. But that's the ranges. The other big factor that's going to make the ranges go up and down is how much competition is in the area. So in a paradoxical way, you would think Los Angeles would be more expensive, but it's actually cheaper in Los Angeles to get influencers because there's so many of them. So it's basic supply and demand. There's like, you can't like literally you like throw a rock out this window, you probably hit an influencer somewhere in Los Angeles, and there's camera people everywhere. It's like so it's the prices are much cheaper. So basically for them, you really can just give them the food and pay for their parking and do that kind of stuff. In places like the other markets I work in, there's like nobody. You know what I mean? Like there's so few of them that they command a higher price just because they're busy. And if you really want to get them to come out and guarantee it, usually you have to put a little money behind it. So
Yeah.
see, we only need like 3 questions, and that's going to be the hour.
So
I think Scarrett badges are one of the smartest things I've seen in the industry in a really long time. Scarrett badges are basically either pins or embroidered patches, kind of like merit badges, as they are, somewhat named after, from Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and Brownies, and where after you've accomplished something, you can wear the brag tag of the embroidered patch. Some haunts put them on jackets, some put them on t-shirts, some put them on, with the pins, I've seen them put them on lanyards. But the neat thing about them is they are very specific in what they are rewarding. And they're haunt-based images that reflect what's being rewarded. It's retention, it is bringing people back, and it's actually giving your haunters, your haunt performers, the ability to share that they are haunt performers. And, oh really, you're a scare actor. Where do you do that? And then they will insert the name of your haunt right there. So it's also marketing. I've always been a big fan of Scarrett badges. I think they're great. So check them out, scarrettbadges.com. No, that is not a paid advertisement. That is just my recommendation. I think it's really cool.
ScottSwinson.com.
So when it comes to influencers, what should we be looking for? Local people that like doing events, theme parks, stuff like that, or say we're limited on having.
Right. I would say there's a lot of different ways to do this. Like you can buy software that allows you to find it in the area. You can also try using like deep research in ChatGPT or in Gemini or some of those areas to do comprehensive searches, or you could do it manually with a spreadsheet or whatever. But again, that goes back to your basic marketing plan. Right person, right time, right person. That means personas. So you should have an audience persona for every group that goes to your haunt. Well, Philip, how do you make audience personas? Well, if you have exit polling data, you have ticket selling data, you should know the demographics of who buys the tickets, how all these stuff, and you can lump them into demographics, and then you can make personas. And so then what you'll do, so if you know that, I'll just give you examples. So say we got the college frat guy, we got the high school group, we got the haunt enthusiasts, older whatever, you got the childless millennials, you got the people, if you're a cocktail, the food people, and then so you maybe you got your if you're a family, you have your mom, whatever, your family package. Okay, so you have these different personas. So you should, if you think influencers is the best strategy, you can take those personas and look for those in each one. So, again, use Hush as an example. At Hush, I look into each of those demographics because we have so many offerings. We have a stage show, we have live entertainment, we have bars, we have all that stuff. And so I want all the food bloggers. I also want the mommy bloggers because we have a kids day. So I want these people, and each one I target in a different way. So the mommy blogger, I'm having them make content around our kids day, and I'm encouraging them to bring their kids trick-or-treating to our haunt. The food bloggers, I don't want them to record in the haunt. I want them to go and do tastings of the drinks and take cool pictures, right? And I don't actually care about the haunt bloggers. I'm not throwing shade out there, but I don't really care about that market because we already have that market. I don't need to convince that market, right? And I don't really actually want to encourage the high school market that doesn't have chaperones, right? So I might target a little bit older on that. So you see how I can break down these personas, and then I can take those personas and I can go look for influencers that serve those personas. But again, it all goes back to your basic marketing, your marketing 101, right person, right message, who is the right person, who are these people, and then break it down from there.
That kind of goes to Craig's question about creating different types of commercials focused on age groups: Gen Z, Alpha Center commercial, one for parents, boomers, Gen X. Yeah,
right. I think that's a great idea. But again, it goes back to the same marketing plan. You're making your persona, you're doing your basic marketing work. You're making your persona. You're thinking about the groups of people that come to your haunt. Then you need to figure out where are those groups spending their time. Okay. And then from there, you can figure out if making a commercial is even going to be the best way to reach them. And then I'm just spitballing here, but you might do some of that and you might realize that the boomers don't watch stuff on media. So for them, an article maybe in the paper or an article from something would reach them. If they're really worth it, then you put the money behind it. But say you break all these out. what you're going to see just by how this works is you're going to see like, okay, if you think if Gen Z is an important market for you, you're probably going to see where they spend their time. You're going to see Gen Z spends a lot of their time on TikTok and one of the younger channels, Snapchat, TikTok, those things. Snapchat's probably a little outdated, but let's just say TikTok as an example. So then you could say, okay, maybe we should make our TikTok just for Gen Z. Okay, so this is how this works, right? So you're like, okay, where, what? Because like you shouldn't just be I mean, take this a little bit with a grain of salt because I understand that haunters don't have time, for a full-time marketing team. But I'll give you the perfect, if you had all the money and you had all the time, what you would do is make a dedicated strategy for each channel. So like you're not just taking the same content that perform and just like posting it natively to each thing. You're thinking about who is on these channels. If your TikTok is Gen Z, it should be geared for Gen Z. If your Facebook is millennial and boomers, it should be geared for those people. If your Instagram, is mainly millennial, whatever, I mean, it should be geared for that. So you would, in Craig's example, you would have already broken all that out, and then you could make different commercials to cater to those different targets, but you need to know right people. So who are your demographics? And then you need to know right time, like where are they? Like where are they spending their time? And I would do that first before, I just feel like so many times we think we got to make a commercial, but like the reality is that's down here. Like you're like, that's like you when you start at step A and you're already the commercial is like step M or something, like commercial is like at that point you should know. I should be able to ask you, what is the purpose of this commercial? What is the goal? What target market are you trying to reach? What all these answers to all that questions? Because who's going to be in your commercial? Is it going to be a young kid getting scared, or is it going to be boomers and older dropping their family off and drinking and watching people dance on stage, or is it going to be college people getting hammered and then like falling over in the haunt because they're so scared and they pee themselves a little bit? I don't know. Like again, all let's go back to the same thing.
And that kind of leads into Sean's comment is like, am I crazy that I would rather take a well-curated reel versus a post that is on a large audience? Yeah, you make something specific for each of those
Right.
people
Yes,
that
because
are.
it's going to resonate with them more. Anything, again, the key to content here is like, as a creator, when I'm making content, like you really have to so there's a test. So whenever I talk to other creators, I have this like test and I'm like, okay, actually making memes, it sounds really stupid, but making memes is probably one of the best ways that you can prove that you understand your audience. Why is that? It's because memes, if it resonates with you, people love them, but they have to resonate, right? And so that's why I don't know if you all saw that, well, like a while ago I did that meme with the new Home Depot stuff, and it was like he's like no, and he's like going through, and then at the end it's just like like the just the grace, the stuff, and it's like that will resonate with haunters. Like haunters will love that. If I were a creator that was just a general audience creator that loved Halloween, I would be like, let's review the new Home Depot drops, and new skeleton, 9 out of 10 because I love skeletons or whatever. But like doing it in this way speaks to my audience, which are haunters. Because why? Because haunters love to brag about how they make everything, and they love to brag about how Home Depot is terrible quality, and they love to just, kind of poo-poo everything, and Home Depot steals my stuff, and but at the same time they love to buy cheap skeletons and then just like refab them. I mean, like it's got this all these dynamics. If you can understand your audience that perfectly and encapsulate it into a piece of content, that is the goal, right? And so, if it's that's back to Sean's thing about what the curated or not. Like the goal is to understand your audience so well that you know what they would find interesting, and you'd be able to package it in a way that it would resonate with them. But if you don't have time for any of that, like say you're like Philip, all I have time to do is like one post the entire Halloween season, and I can't even have time to write an email. Then I'd be like, okay, maybe put a generic post together that at least covers your basis so people know who, what, when, where, and why. Okay, get it. But ideally, no, like it's going to perform better with your demographics if you can really make it speak to them.
I was just thinking about a package that you could have Home Depot sell, and for different, there's some people that are going to want the pre-corpsed skeleton for $99. There's other people that would buy the package for the $30 skeleton with some plastic wrap, some brushes, a little bit of glue, a heat gun, and some stain. for $69.99,
Yep.
and then spend 6 hours making their own corpse skeleton.
Yep.
Because different packages for different people.
Yeah, and
Same
that would
end
also be
product.
like a great way to even redo that meme again, where you could be like, be like Haunter A, just like buy the thing, or like Home Haunter, like whatever, buy and put it up, or whatever. You could make some labels to make fun of people, and then you're just like other like Home Haunter who like you break out the cost, and it's like 6 hours at like minimum wage is actually like this amount, and what do you break it out, and
Yeah.
then just because how many times we heard that at Transworld where people are like, I can just make my own lights, and you're like, I mean, but like you can, but like maybe instead you should be working on your marketing plan. Like what's gonna be I mean, but that would also be like a great, like you're saying, be able to lay that out. Like, okay, I see Craig in here has asked, how do you determine your demographic on each platform? Um, so this one is, I think there is software you can buy that kind of does all this automatically. You also can get some help from like ChatGPT now and Gemini, and kind of like you can export some of your data and put it in there and see if it can give you insights. I would recommend doing all these things. But I'll explain the theory to you. So basically, what you're doing is ideally you would take that. He said he did a post haunt survey. So ideally you would take that data in there. There would be some demographic information that at least be able to put them into a demographic piles, right? When you're creating your persona, you're trying to get it as much as a real person that you can possibly think of. It's kind of like a little bit like acting, where you're trying to like invent a person that is an example of a whole group. So like Karen, the sassy mommy vlogger, or the sassy mom, and she just wants a cheap activity, but if anything goes wrong, she's going to complain, and she's doesn't want to drive that far. She definitely is going to need a pregame because she can't deal with the kids, and her husband isn't nice to her, and so she takes it out on, I mean, like you got to like ideally what you're going to want is like you're going to create a persona, and you want the two elements classically are demographic and psychographic, right? Demographics are pretty easy to gather from your survey data, right? How old are you? How many tickets did you buy? How far did you drive? How did you hear about whatever? That's demographics. Psychographics are harder, and that one takes a little bit more like years in operation and takes some like analyzing comments basically, on and kind of see what the sentiment is that people have and talking to them and those kind of things, and really just studying at your haunt who shows up, who waits, who doesn't mind waiting, what they do, all that stuff. So you got to take that one a little bit more. But what you can do is combine data. So you can look at your survey data, and then you can look at the metrics on your channels. So Instagram has this data, Meta has the data, your TikTok also does have limited data. So you can go in and you can look at those and say, okay, what are the age ranges, male, female, age? You can see that kind of basic information. And you should be able to combine this together to get a rough idea of that. And then from there, it is testing. And that's why I'm saying, like, in a perfect world, each piece of content has a goal and it has something you're trying to test. So then you can say, okay, we think that this, based on this haunt survey, and then based off of the demographics on Facebook, that we think that this chunk here pays attention to our Facebook. And so we're going to make a thing that talks to that chunk. We're going to test a few of them, see how they perform, right? And then go back to it later in review. I think a lot of times haunters like never review. They just kind of like make their whole season and then just like walk away. But you really should be kind of like reviewing. Did this actually perform well or not? If we made it for this demographic and we thought this was right, where did we get it wrong? Was it that it was just bad quality? Or was it that it didn't speak to the right demographic? I mean, because there has to be a quality baseline, right? Like it's like I see people basically, it's the whole mic thing, even if you are just holding like a phone mic, you're going to be able to hear the person so much better, right? Than if you were so there is a quality baseline you have to hit. But then from there, really you should be able to make something that speaks to them implicitly. Or you could just try making some memes and testing it now, and seeing like, okay, do these like resonate with this audience, or, that kind of thing. Yes. I hope that answered the question. Craig, if it didn't, tell us. Because I'm just getting ranty at this point. I need more coffee.
Do you know what causes haunted attractions to shut down before they even get started? The top 3 roadblocks are lack of funding, lack of leadership, lack of resources. As a member of the Haunters Toolbox, you get instant access to the tools you need to start and grow your own haunted attraction business. To get started, become a member at haunterstoolbox.com.
Sean has a good idea or a question. Give him some good tidbits on being a Canadian and marketing to Americans. So, how do we bring people across the border? And he doesn't want my opinion because it's far too far for Americans to come visit. Except when Philip is in town and then, it doesn't.
Okay, I tried.
Ooh.
Let's not even go there. I did try. Yeah, it was the whole thing.
I understand,
You
man.
just got to go back now.
Yeah, so that one, I don't know. I think I would say again, you can try, you could do some testing, you could look back at your, like right person, how do we like get them in? I think you have to determine first, like whether you are even reaching those people now, right? Like, do you even have Americans on your mailing lists, on your texting lists, on your social platforms? Like, do you have any chunk of that market now? If you don't, then it's going to become a little bit of you could test different options. You could test a keyword strategy or an ad buy strategy. If you really want to get crazy, you could try making some content. You know, yeah, yeah. I don't know how. I mean, I don't know how far you want to go down there, but you could try making some content where you're like, you know, come to Canada where it's tariff free and everything is cheaper or something, and you're like, come have dinner over here, or come it's something like you're like mic drop, you're like, Canadian steak is better, prove us wrong, right? I mean, that kind of a you could try and you could try and do some kind of funny stuff like that in there. But I think the way I would do it is first look at, do we have any of these people that we can go ask and look at and kind of see why they made the decision in the first place to come to your haunt and get data from them. And then from there, you can go and figure out if you don't have any of them already, then you like if you have no Americans on that list now, then you're gonna have to like kind of start from scratch by just making some campaigns, and you should test out different ones. You should test out, is the keyword stuff, the ad buy, or could we make content? I would say the content's going to be almost the hardest one because presumably most of the people that follow your channels is going to be, like not Americans. But that doesn't mean you couldn't make, ads and then, like not post them as native content, just make them as ads from the beginning and run ads on the different platforms and then just see how you go. Yeah, that would be my strategy.
Yeah, because Windsor's not that far away, right?
Yeah,
you got
Windsor's like
you got a
really
bridge
close.
and
So
water, and
yeah.
that's about it.
Yeah, it's
So
really close to that area. I mean, I could see you sitting down and thinking. I mean, that could be one where you might consider doing an awareness strategy. That would be one where maybe you would try and host, a relatively larger like Detroit influencer or something and just try and get like awareness, like, hey, this is a thing that's available. I could see that working. Or I could see you testing some of these different strategies just to see, like what would work and what. Yeah. Okay.
okay.
What else? We
So
had
I
a
have
question.
I have some questions on Facebook or
Oh,
Facebook chat.
good.
Okay, so how about the haunt review? How about the haunt review crews that show up in mass every year? What do you
I
think
show
about
up
those?
in mass every year.
The haunt
I feel like this
review
is a question
crews.
that
I can't
is
say that.
designed to get me in trouble, right? Is that
I don't know. It's from James.
okay?
Hey, James. So
Um,
do you think they're a good thing for marketing, advertising? Do you think they're good for listing on their websites, the logos they let you put on their website, that kind of stuff? Social proof, does it help?
so wait, can we swear? I don't know. Can we?
Yeah, this is a PG-13. So it's
Oh, okay. I guess I'm gonna go with so here's the thing. Let's take it back to what I've been saying this entire time. Right person, right time, right? So if you can figure out, like if you can draw a connection between the review and someone who actually showed up to your haunt after reading the review and buy a ticket, I think there's some justification behind it. Most of the clients that I have worked with find that is not the case because the type of people who are going to a haunted house, very few of them are like reading a review
The
on an independent
reviews.
website. Like the reviews they are checking is like Yelp and like Google. They're just looking for like other regular people. Like they really don't care about like a haunt like expert talking about the haunt. Like the people that care about those reviews tend to be the people who are like already in the haunt community. And generally speaking, people that are already in the haunt community are almost like the least important demographic for haunters because they're already aware of the haunt and because they already like want to go and they kind of already know the haunts they want to go to.
Mhm.
Right. So there might be a way for you to like parlay that into, content that is useful for you. Uh,
What
like
what
I think of like the scare factor, right? Like
yeah.
so, they have teams kind of all around, so, but like I think I've seen some haunts and they take some of the a highlight of that, and they make a post about it, or they somehow they leverage it, on their own, like the haunt leverages some of that stuff on their own network as a way of like proving to people, that it's a thing. And so I think if you're using it in that way, right? If you're like leveraging
Mhm.
it, right? But I think that kind of just
Yeah.
relying on on the independent reviewer to sell tickets for you is probably like not gonna net. But like I don't want to shut on all of them or hate on it, but like what I'm gonna say is like, does it really like how much does it really matter? Like it's like a pair of tickets, Like come on. I mean, like that part of me is like we're arguing about the wrong thing. So like here at at Gantum, generally we have rules in place where I'm like, if the decision is like $50 to $100 in that range, like why are you even asking me? Because the time it would take to set up a meeting and discuss it is going to cost me more in labor than it is like to just solve the problem. Like I'm like, if you need a pencil, go buy a pencil. I mean, I've had just real examples of like
You can
staff that
make
have been
one.
like, I need approval to buy a pen or buy a piece of paper or something ridiculous to do this thing. And you're like, just do it. Like, and so sometimes I do think I'm like the amount of time that we spend like even like thinking about this is almost not worth it. You know what I mean? Like I would again back to the making your marketing plan. I would make your marketing plan ahead of time and I would decide then how you're going to answer like all the reviewers. And you would just decide, if they're only asking for one or two tickets and it's whatever in they're in this realm of impact is in like, they're not the New York Times or the, or Fox or something, they're not like a thing that's like a brand really, like if Fox comes out and wants to do something, like do it, whatever. But like I would make your plan early and make your decision as a team as to what you would like to do. Because I also think, honestly, like, ugh, I'm gonna get in so much trouble for this interview, but I think most haunters definitely like don't run their haunt to make money or to even be a business. They do it because they enjoy entertaining people and they see it as an art form. And so I do think there is a lot of ego invested. And I think that there is an argument for like having the reviewers come out to tell you that you did a good job. And I mean, that's a whole separate argument, right? Like if you're telling if the question is, should we do these review things because they're going to sell tickets? I think the answer is generally no. But is the question instead, we're bringing these reviewers out because all of our staff and all of our actors, since they are haunters and they go to Trans World, they're paying attention to what the Scare Factor and the other places say, and they value this. Then it's 100% worth it, right? Because what you're doing is, you're putting your product out there and you're making your team like happy when they get to review it and you're sharing it. Are your customers going to care? I'm not sure about that, and especially now there's so many of them. Like, I work with the Scare Factor. I think what they do an excellent job, but they're, they operate nationally, but there's a lot of local ones and all over and independent and all that. I mean, so I think it really again back depends on your goal for the thing you're doing. And yeah, anyway, that's all I gotta say.
You mean the group of junior high students is not following,
Yeah. Like that's the thing. It's just so hilarious. It's like we're over here and we're like, these people don't even know what a haunted house is, right? They don't even know that you like ours. They don't even like, oh, you have bars? And we're like, yes, that is literally the thing that we're known for. Oh, really? Can I drink at the bars? Like, well, what else are you gonna do with them? You know what I mean? Like, what? Come on, like, like those people? You're trying to convince me that those people are gonna read X review expert person's thing and buy a ticket? No. Like, honestly, you could better convince me to like encourage people to leave Google and Yelp reviews by doing some sort of like incentive program than you would about those things. And, but again, the haunt community does care what other community members think. And so if you're just
Mhm.
like with this, the scared badges, right? Like that's not really gonna, necessarily convince someone to buy a ticket. If they see someone with a lot of badges on, that's not gonna convince them to buy a ticket. What it's gonna do is help with staff retention, help with staff morale, help them understand their value, help them feel appreciated, all these things. That's the same thing the review is doing. And it's just like a person who, if they respect the person, it means a lot to them, right? So some of the best haunts I've been to too, they have those reviews like not in the like they made the posters, and they put the posters like in the staff areas. They don't put them like in the guest areas, right? So
This podcast episode sponsored by Scarrett Badges.
We always were looking for ideas to get those actors to take it to the next level. I really want to do something that they can use more than just a meal, or they can use more than just that a boy, that a girl. They love this stuff, but it's not really promoting a haunter. And then I sit down, Scarrett Badges comes out. That's when I realized this is amazing, because not only is it giving them an attaboy, but it's also promoting them all year round. And to promote somebody, to give somebody accolades all year round and have them be able to wear it on their shoulder with pride means a lot. This right here says this is who nailed it on this day in this year for the rest of their life, for the rest of their haunting life. And that's what I really love about this product, is you're able to give haunting to somebody an attaboy 365 days a year. And so hats off to you guys. I think this is a great product, and I wish you the best of luck because it's awesome.
Get your Scarrett Badges at scarebadges.com.
That's what we used ours for. We got the number 3 scare factor. They say the fan voted, number 3 fan voted in Missouri. So so we put that on all of our advertising, postcards, flyers, website, second year, which really helped us social proof, right? So stuff like that until we did get our Google reviews built up, and then it became a go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think what Craig said here in the chat, it's like we assume the customers are haunt nerds. And that's so true, because, again, that's why it's important to come up with the personas. Like they're not, they have no idea, and yes, he is right. It is an impulse purchase, for the most part. The bigger events, like you don't generally impulse purchase Halloween Horror Nights, tickets and a plane, right? But a lot of the haunts, if your haunt is relatively priced, 15 to 20-ish, that's pretty impulsy, right? So that I think they're impulse purchasing. That means that they're searching scary things to do near me this weekend, or spooky things, or whatever, or they're just talking to their friends and it's coming up and they're doing those things. They're in no way are they like, I don't know. That's my take. Anyway.
Then there's always those people that don't want to come, but they just get drug along because their friends like to go to haunts.
Yeah, that's a huge.
And you're not really necessarily marketing to them, but you need to still entertain them when they get there.
Yeah.
Sean's asking, what's a good formula for the amount of social posts per day or per week? And is there specific times of day, or where can you find that out when it's to post?
Right. Again, that's in your metrics for each of your channels. Your channels will tell you when your audience is most active, and you can also test based on the number of posts you make, how that increases or decreases your engagement. So the answer is testing, but just step out from that for a second. Like, I think it is less and less important to even really post natively. Like, I think, like you're not gonna, it's just like maybe you'll win the lottery, right? But you're not, it's like, that's not the important thing. Like the important thing is understanding like what you're going to put your paid advertising behind, right? And on social, and what you're going to boost and what you're not, and like how that whole thing is working and all that stuff. Like, I think that we've definitely moved beyond you getting much traction from posting natively at all. Like the only bonus I see it as is like you post natively just to remind people that the business is open, right? You're like, like as in like, it's not dead, right? But like, most of the engagement really comes from like ads that you're paying to run, and that's by design. The platforms, like, they don't want you to get anything for free. Come on, like. Mm-hmm. Oh, hashtags. So Erica, Erica's asking, what are your thoughts on hashtags and how many are too many? The rule last year was no more than 3, but there was some announcements this week that the meta platforms will be killing hashtags altogether. So I would just, for now, I think around 3, but after that, the hashtags are just not going to be relevant. They're already not relevant because what happens is the platforms, whether it's, any of the platforms, when you're uploading when it is uploading, AI is listening to it and it is scanning every frame and it knows what the video is about by the time that you post it. And so it's really not it's not about that really anymore.
Hashtags are taking less importance now.
Yeah, they're much less important for indexing. So I think right now three, but watch the news coming out from Meta and see when they're going to be sunsetting hashtags altogether.
The James Michael Roddy says, "What do you think of Michael Roddy?"
What do I think of Michael Roddy? Hi, Michael. Well, I have your book, but I'm not.
Oh shucks.
Oh,
Maybe the next one.
okay. All right. I'm holding to do that.
Chris Patty, if you do land an influencer to advertise on social media, what would they actually shout outs, advertise your videos on their lives, etc.? How does that work if you or anyone has been successful? I know we covered that a little bit earlier. Can you add to anything, Philip, on
We did cover it earlier, so I would say, when you get the recording, you can go back and listen to that
that?
whole,
Okay.
I explained the whole influencer thing. But I will just clarify that you should have an influencer strategy and you're basically gonna break them up, right, into so first of all, I think every haunt should have a media night, just like every haunt should still send out a press release. But why, Philip? AI is killing everything. Isn't, search dead and blah 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 blah. I mean, like all this stuff still needs content to draw from. So when you send out a press release, even if just a few websites or one like picks it up, it increases the chances that when somebody is literally going to ChatGPT and ChatGPTing what should I do this weekend, which is a thing that happens, then it hopefully will see your haunt's name and it will increase the likelihood it gets brought into what it's developing. So there's still the basics, guys. The basics is hold a media night where you give them food and you make it a great experience, and that will get you like earned media. And then you can also do the easy stuff, which is like sending out press releases and just letting people know like what's going on. But in generally, like we've talked about the three types of media. There's paid, there's earned, and there's owned, right? So earned would be that like you're inviting people there, you're inviting media, do whatever. Paid is what we've been talking about, where you pay for the content, you pay for the ads or whatnot. And then owned is like the stuff that you're posting, right? So there's another type of way. So when I say media nights, you can invite influencers to media, but generally you invite what you consider to be traditional media or whatever. Now, in addition to media nights, what you can do is pay an influencer, which we talked about earlier. But just to reiterate, the distinction with that is that means you are basically hiring a freelancer to create assets and distribute them for you. So it's no different than if you were going to buy an ad. Back in the day, we bought an ad in a newspaper. It's the same thing. You are paying for advertising on their network. And ideally, what you can do is you could work into that contract something where you get to use their video that they make. You get rights to use their video for a certain amount of time. And ideally, then you would do that. So then, if they posted it on their network and then it did well, you could post it on yours, and that saves your team time for having to do marketing. So the influencers, what they bring is they bring basically like a miniature media arm where they're giving you distribution and they're also giving you asset creation. So that's what you're purchasing. You're purchasing distribution and you're purchasing asset creation from them when you have a contract with them, which is separate from when you just invite media to your media night. If you are just inviting them to the media night and they just show up and they get free tickets and free food, there's no contract, which means you have no rights to use the content they're creating. Okay? You're not hiring them. You're just inviting them and hoping they're going to give you earned media. That's why we have the paid, earned, and owned, our three types of media. So I hope that clarifies.
Okay. I think that helps a little bit. And again,
Mhm.
this will be saved and put up online, so you can go back and watch this again and catch any of those things that you missed from earlier. You had mentioned ChatGPT and AI, and we got
Yep.
two AI questions. So what's the biggest change you see that AI is affecting online? And are blog posts still relevant? And does it help with AI with Google?
Okay, we'll take these two things separately. The first is what's the biggest change? And I think in a way, it changes everything. Like you might not like gravity, but gravity doesn't care. And that's what's happening with AI. I mean, it is very quickly going to become ubiquitous, and it will be like everywhere. And so I think the change is going to be everything and yet nothing. Like we talked about, Daryl earlier, like mentioned that not much, everything has changed, but not much has changed. So like I think that haunted houses are still going to be something you physically go to, where there are actors involved with some physical set in some way. I believe that that's why people like haunted houses, because it's a thing they can go to and do with other people in the real world, right? So I don't think that is changing. But like the rest of it, you could see AI impacting every element. Alan Hops talked about this quite extensively during the State of the Industry talk, which I recorded, and you can go and listen to that section about Alan. But he talked about a lot of stuff, right? He talked about you can put GoPros in your haunt, and you can upload the footage every night to AI and say, find the best moments of this, or find every moment of a girl screaming or whatever, and it will chop it for you. So you can use it in media production. You can use it to help you with your personas and all of your marketing efforts. You can use it to write your press releases. You can use it to help examine your websites, and you could use it to find leads for influencers, to find leads for local media people. You could use it in ideation for your costumes. You could use it in ideation for your sets and your storylines. You could use it for script writing. You can use anything else in your haunt other than like the physical people showing up. Like you're not going to get AI to paint the wall for you, right? But basically everything else, even making props, using AI to help you write code for something, and then using the code and finding a way to, do a 3D model rendering based off of that input. I mean, now making images, AI can make your posters, it can make your advertising, your collateral. You could create a clone of yourself and have that clone do live interviews for TV. You could clone your actors and your characters in 11 labs, and you could have them creating content every day. You could have an AI clone doing a live stream in your haunt. I can keep going. But like, I mean, like, so, okay. So like, it's one of those things where like, I think haunts will still be a physical thing, but also AI is going to impact basically most of the things in the haunt to some degree. Now, a separate question might be, Philip, what do you think the best AI tools are? That we could talk about if someone wants to know. But Craig's question, which are blog posts on the website useful anymore? And does it help with AI on Google? So AI needs content, and so it doesn't hurt, SEO and search might be dying because people are increasingly using AI to do searches they could be doing on Google for like 1/10 the energy. But, that's the trend, is definitely people searching more in just AI to do that. Of course, we forget that people also still search within Meta. Meta has their own AI, like all these things have, and so what I recommend is just, again, back to your basics. Your haunt needs to have information in just a minimum amount of places. So you need all your FAQs, you need your website fleshed out. You also need to send your press releases out to a bunch of places. You also need to have your Facebook stuff, all of that needs to be populated correctly and all this. Why? Because Facebook has its own AI, and it will be reading your pages. And if your page doesn't have any information, it can't give that information up to another person. And same thing with your website. It's not necessarily so that humans will go to the website at this point. It is so the information is there, so that if someone is doing a search, AI, whatever, then it can pull that information, it can crawl it and pull it into the answer for you. So,
have you checked out HauntersToolbox.com yet? It's free to join and full of useful information to help you start and grow your own haunted attraction business. All the information on HauntersToolbox.com is created by the pros who do it. We have a library with ebooks and presentations on topics like creating an employee handbook, starting a business plan, or the best types of lights to use at your haunt, plus a lot more. You get instant access to the library plus free video masterclasses by the experts in the haunt industry. Classes like Alan Hops from Dark Hour Haunted House teaching scare acting, or Philip Hernandez from the Haunted Attraction Network teaching marketing and social media, or Leonard Pickle from Hauntpreneurs teaching haunt design and construction. I even got a few masterclasses in there as well. You don't have to do it alone. Let us help you. We also host monthly live masterclasses to steer you in the right direction, so you don't get lost. Once you become a member, you also get instant updates on our next masterclass in your email so you don't miss the next one. And if you need more one-on-one help, there is an option for that as well. I would be honored to help you get your attraction started or help you grow your current one. I know what it takes. Let's talk. If you're interested, you want to start and grow your haunted attraction, go check out HauntersToolbox.com. Don't be scared.
I think that maybe not necessarily a blog post strategy, but some sort of making sure that your minimum bases and all of these are covered is good. And same thing with YouTube. I mean, that's another reason also to make sure you have at least one YouTuber coming out, because people go in YouTube and search. Like, I think I mean, maybe if you're older like me, you're thinking of search and like they go to Google and search. No, like people go to YouTube and search best haunted houses in your state. Like they do that in YouTube. And so if you don't have any content on YouTube, what is it gonna surface? Your competitors. That's what it's gonna surface, right? And then, yes, you can go into each of these areas and you can buy, AdWords. So I mean, you could buy a search result to be served, to buy a ticket to your haunt, right? But I think it's less likely they're going to click on that if there's not even one video about your haunt, right? I mean, just you have to back to the personas. You have to understand how each of these personas is searching for the thing. Some people go to Yelp, some people go to Google, some people search within Facebook, some people search within Instagram. Increasingly, people are searching within Instagram, people are searching within YouTube. So understanding your personas and where they find their information is key. But if you don't have time or whatever, I mean, I still think it's still a good idea to like make sure you're at least having a thing in all of these places.
And just because you don't use TikTok or I don't use TikTok doesn't mean that our customers don't.
Yeah,
so
that's another
it's
thing,
important to find.
Yeah, but
there's
it also
always
doesn't
new
mean
stuff
they're
come
obsessed
out.
with it too. I see that a lot
Well, some
too.
are.
Where people like it's all about this channel, and I'm like, well, I mean, not really. Look at who's showing up to your haunt. Okay, what else, guys? Anything?
So tell us a little bit about press releases. What should we do?
Yeah, so in its basic sense, your press release has the who, what, when, where, and why. But the purpose of a press release is to provide a news entity, or at this point, it can be a vlogger or anybody in that sphere of people that make content. It's to provide either news agencies or content creators or any of these people with everything they need to produce a story about your haunt. Okay, so the press release should have the pitch, like the sales pitch, like why is this important? So who, what, when, where, why does it matter to me? And then it should also have in it a link to digital assets. And you just think about it. Like if if you want a website to pick it up, the website's going to be like, okay, are there any photos that we can put in the thing? Or like what it's going to be the eye-catching thumbnail, like they need all these assets available. And then if you want somebody like some blogger on Instagram, like there are all these accounts, right, that are like 3 spooky things to do this weekend and blah blah blah, and like so they're gonna need B-roll of your haunt, right? And if they don't have it, they're not gonna use your haunt. Like so, I think in its base form, you have your press release, which has the basic information in a clear and concise way, and then it also has a link to your media assets folder, and your assets folder has at least photos and at least a 30-second B-roll clip. Like this would be the minimum, and then anybody can pull anything they need about to make any story that they would want on you, because that's the whole point, right? And also during haunt season, right? Like I run the, a lot. I work at a few different haunts, and I run the social and the email for quite a few of them. And what happens is you get reporters that are like behind deadline, and they're like, I need this, in like an hour. And so there's no way you're gonna be able to do it if you wait to haunt season. Now you can just send them a link, or better yet, just put it on your website. And then they just go, oh, here's the media room, here's the information, great, and then move on.
When do you start sending out press releases?
So that, I think it depends on the market, right? So here in California, there's generally like a higher lead time. So you'll see, I mean, just this week I got a press release for an event that's in September. So in California, we already have press releases that are coming out to us to kind of save dates, save the media date, Generally, I think if you have the time, the first thing you should send out is like save the date for our media night. and we're gonna feed you, it's gonna be great, all this stuff, more details coming soon, whatever. That gives media the incentive like to actually cover the story, because they know they're gonna get something. um, and then also you're getting it on their calendar, and then you can drip it out. I think 6 weeks is generally the latest that you want to send out. I think 6 weeks from your opening day. But I would also send a reminder as it gets closer, like within a week or something, because like Craig had said earlier, a lot of the stuff is impulse purchasing. And so you're sending out stuff like later, because not only is it like an impulse purchase, but also like reporters tend to like forget about Halloween. Like it's our entire life, obviously. And so we're thinking about it constantly. But regular reporters, the general public, all these people, like content creators, they kind of forget about Halloween until like October. And then they're like, even then, sometimes they forget about their Halloween special until like the week before. So I think like making sure that again you're kind of like keeping it top of mind to those people. Um, at Hush, we generally do like three or four. We'll do a save the date, then we'll do the big announcement one, and then we'll do like a opening, you know, already open or whatever, like after we've opened, we'll do one, and then we'll do like a final weekend to experience it, and here's our special events happening type of thing.
Now, you said, you're already getting some stuff now in
Yep.
your area because it's such a big lead time and they're saving it. But what can people do to keep these? There are people that like Halloween, 365, 24/7. How do you keep your haunt in their minds on the off season
Uh, I would counter with, is doing that going to make you money?
point?
Yeah. If you are doing events where, again, a lot of people do, like, we hear about it all the time. We hear about Save the Industry, all that. They do like recruitment stuff. They do monthly trainings. Maybe they open for halfway to Halloween or any of that stuff. If you have that and you have a way to monetize it, then I would say maybe you can create a list of the more Halloween focused demographic, and you can send some content out to them personally. But if you have no way of monetizing your off season, I'm not sure it's worth the effort. It might just be fine to say, we're going to be doing a recruitment drive, or you can learn how to do this or that. We know it might be fine just to stick with the basic, we're casting and we're going to do a workshop on sliding and whatever. And if you are interested, come by. Like that might be your best bet. Like the people that have, that's why I like people that have the online stores, like Postmortem, and the one Carlos Rivas for Harrah's Nightmare, who just received the award this year, first year haunt. They're building year-round horror stores. I think that the business case is a lot firmer in that, because they're selling merchandise year round, that's not just about their haunt, but then it allows them to kind of keep that market engaged, and then when it gets closer to haunt season, they're like ready to go.
Okay.
James Warren, should you include your media night invite at the same time? I'm assuming as a press release, or should you keep that separate? He also said we sent our media night invite out one year in mini coffin and made the evening news.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
so what
that's
kind
a
of
great idea.
so as I guess press release, would you include like do press releases, media night? Is that like, or I guess that's two separate things? I guess you can have two separate things, right?
They are two separate things. Yes, your press release is generally, just something that ideally would live in a media room or something like on your website that people could access, throughout the season if they need to in a hurry. The media night generally is separate. You can include them together, but you don't have to. And the more that you can do to grab attention with the media invites, the better. So the mini coffins is a great idea. This goes back though to depending on your budget, right? And your time and your budget and all that kind of stuff. I think that kind of stuff generally, it's, again, I think you got to like go back to your think back to your marketing plan, right people, right time. Okay, so really it's going back to the audience personas you have, and what you're doing is you have an idea of where those audience personas like are paying attention, right? So if they're watching the local stations, or they're listening to the radio, or they're reading something, or they're following an online blog, or whatever, then you're inviting those people that your audience is watching, like, to the media night, right? You see how it all connects together, right? So you're inviting those people to the media night, and then if you can do anything to stand out in those people's minds or, capture their imagination or make them excited, that's even better because then hopefully you'll get earned media, which we talked about, an earned story in their platforms, and it will give you ROI because that your audience pays attention to that. Right. So that's how it all like ties together. I understand this is like not always possible with the time and the stuff that the haunts have, but that's how it should work. So, but yes, I think if you like I'll give you an example too. Like last year the Queen Mary's Dark Harbor, they held literally like an entire pre-event that was just about it was kind of like they had a whole pre-event and it was just about to announce that the opening days of the haunt basically and you could take it was a whole like catered thing and there it wasn't even the full information about the event. It was just like the event is coming and here it is and whatever, and like all the media came out and everyone got to see everybody. They got drinks, it was this whole thing, and it was they dressed up the actors, they had people from the city there, and it was the whole thing. But then they also separately sent out like bottles that had inside like a parchment paper, and you open the parchment paper and it was like save the date for this date for the media night. I mean, yeah, it gets kind of like crazy. Some of that. But again, back to what I mentioned, like the reason I think is because there's so many creators in this area. And so you don't need to pay the individual influencers as much. So you can spend a little bit more money on the media night, to really encourage as many of them as you can to get out.
Is there such things over communication?
Yeah, I do. I generally think again that depends on, your individual situation, but I think of the smaller haunts I work with, like I don't think many people like care that much. So I think in that, you know what I mean? Like, not to be a bad thing, but it's like they're like it's what I mean? They're kind of like they have the attitude of like it's just a haunted house, and it's only May. So they're not really in the right mood to receive that message. So I would say if you're in a market that doesn't have as much competition, or you're in like a market where they don't put out they don't put out stuff in the stores as early, then I would move that timeline back a little bit, and I would really not to overwhelm them, which is another reason why it might actually be a good thing to send the media invite separate, because the media invite can be really simple and cute. You could send them like a box of creepy cookies and be like, here's the media invite, whatever. And then later you could follow it up with the press release information and then go straight into the media night.
There was a comment from Nora Prophet from the Scare Factor. I'm going to read it. It's crazy to me how many haunts don't think of media as a thing they need. You know how many press releases we get a year? I can count on one hand the press release. However, haunt updates from owners, we get hundreds just during the season. I'm glad some are updating stuff, but I do wish they'd realize that holding information about your show and making it secret to keep from ruining their surprise also helps hide it from all of your potential customers. Have changes, get that content rolling out there about them. Tell them what they look forward to, why they should visit, what media can do, and media can help you do that. So yes, be communicating with your audience.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I mean, Nora's exactly right. We like it's the easiest thing to me. It's the easiest thing to just send out the press release. This is what we're doing. You have to sell your haunt. Like, this is why you should come out. This is what's going on. You could even repackage stuff that you're going to send out into an email campaign or to a text campaign. You could just repackage it a little bit and send it to media. And we don't get like any, like, I mean, I agree with Nora. Like I was just literally just having this problem earlier with someone who wanted to get on our weekly newsletter. And they're like, how come you're not talking about us? And I'm like, what do you want me to say? Like, there's nothing on your website. There's no information anywhere. Like, I don't like this is way too much work for me to have to hunt down the information about the thing that you supposedly are doing. Like, you should be sending me the information so that I can put it into the newsletter. Like, this is crazy. But yeah, and the whole idea of thinking you're going to ruin it, like, no, because again, I think like that's back to the haunters are artists in many ways, and they think of it, they don't want to, they want it to be appreciated like art. I'm not sure all the customers think of it that way. I think you have to convince them each year because in the customer's mind, they're thinking, we just did that last year, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And they have no idea because to them, they only think of Halloween, maybe once it comes around in late October, they don't think of it year round. And they think that the thing has stayed static. right? So I think, yeah, dispelling that is a big part of it. That's why we always, for Hush at least, we're always really focused on like this is what's new this year. Like that's like the first thing. New this year, new ice caverns with a new ice bar and a Yeti. We're like, get your picture taken with the Yeti, but don't hold your hand too close to his mouth, or I mean, we're like, you gotta sell it.
Hmm.
I guess we can pull up sample press releases on. I'm sure AI could probably do one for.
Yeah, I think again the key for the press releases is who, what, when, where, and why. And I think that you can use AI to help you structure the press release, but coming up with the headline is going to be the most important thing because the headline is the value proposition. Like, why does it matter? And so many haunts get that wrong again because they're thinking of it like, you know, like, oh, we redid all these scenes, we repainted the zombies, and I'm like, nobody knows because nobody remembers what scenes are in your haunt. Nobody, like you could do that press release to your core fans, or that's something for like your email campaign, right? That's
Hmm.
already people that are like invested. But for like you got to make it, you got to sell it to the general public. It's
Like
not.
your USP, your unique selling proposition.
Yes.
You gotta come out and say what you do differently. Whether you're a touch haunt, whether
Yep.
you're bloodiest haunt, whether you're the most kid friendly haunt. No, you gotta kind of stand out.
Yeah, I generally I think your unique selling proposition is a great, that's the technical term for it. I generally tell people to stay away from doing like est things and focus on like, just explaining what the difference is, right? I mean, like, you know, in the beginning, like at Hush, for example, we used to be able to say that we're one of the only, that you can come drink in the middle of the haunt because you get these, you get an integrated bar haunt experience, which was pretty unique. But then, we had to move on from that to really focusing on our entertainment. And so now it's like about the entertainment that is on the stage, and then you mentioned like you still have all the bars and all that stuff, but like, new this year, we have expanded stage, we have more seating for this. There is this new the ice cavern. You have to like really like paint the picture. I think too many times haunters are like, yeah, get lost in it or whatever. Last year I think that the one that Woods of Terror did about Baba Yaga, that are, having like they're opening a whole new section and really like describing the section and, teasing it to the media, having the media night, but then saying it's going to open later, so you have to come back and check out Baba Yaga. Like I think that all that stuff works out. Yeah, because I think it can get too vague, where you're just like new scenes. Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
More
Well,
blood. All right. Like,
extra
yeah, and
blood.
and yeah, yeah. Anyway, okay, done.
What are your thoughts on inviting local radio, news stations, radio hosts out to promote events?
I think you could include all of them in your media night information, include all them to come out. When I make media night plans, again, we're taking it back to the right person, right time. So, you're trying to make sure that the media that you're inviting are media that, you know, that your demographics are paying attention to. That's the whole point, right? Unless you're trying to break into a whole new market, in which case, that's a separate, test for that. But you are if you're drawing it back to that, then you already know why they're on the list. Okay, then you've decided you're going to have a media night because you're getting these people here. So then you're planning your media night, and I usually say when you plan your media night, you need to come up with a content plan or a media plan or something because all the media need different things, right? So we all know there's a lot of like, haunt of vloggers that do walkthrough videos, right? So but then also that if by chance, you get a local news to come in, they don't want to walk through. Generally they have their larger cameras, they generally want like a particular scene or they want some sort of shtick with the host and an actor, or they want you to come into the studio and do something like that or whatever. Radio potentially want something different, Um, so I think you need to have a plan right before you even schedule your media night for all of these things. Are you going to have are you going to even offer a Q&A with the owner? for someone to get interviews? Are you offering photos? Are you letting them film in the haunt? All these questions you need to think about ahead of time. And then when you start to get RSVPs, you can ask the media, like what they need in particular, right? So that you can make sure that everyone gets what they need. But this is all a lot of work, which is why you're like, go back to the audience personas. Like, who are these audiences watching? Try and get them to the media night, then work with them, to make sure they get what they need.
And so marketing and advertising for haunt vendors. I know, get Scare Badges kind of stands out because we're kind of, but mask makers, costume makers, how do they stand out online? What kind of things what can they do?
That's a big question. I think it's a big question because it's a little bit different, but I think if you take it back to what we've been talking about this entire time, develop your personas, and you need to like pay attention to where those people are paying attention. So, here, so I'm trying to figure out how to like do it without ragging on people. So I'm trying to. So okay, let me okay. Here's I'm trying to be like, what can I say that's not gonna get me, whatever yelled at.
This barred?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I was gonna say canceled, but I was like, oh shit.
Canceled.
So here's the thing. Like I think haunt vendors are like terrible at like marketing. Like I've never seen like I'm like baffled. Like
Well, because I've seen a lot of good companies come and go, and I really like their stuff, and they were only around for like they're gone.
Yeah.
I'm like,
But
what
I
happened?
also think though you got to think a little bit more about it. Like if you're a haunt vendor, really thinking about your personas, and I'll try and give a few examples that are like not really raggy, but like for example, we know that so I interviewed George. I usually interview George every year at Immortal, right? And we kind of talk to him about their trends and all what they're seeing and everything. And there's a great insight from him where they started to realize that a growing demographic of their market is actually like cosplayers, like general public cosplayers that just want masks for like cool shit. Okay. That's a very different video. That's a very different website. That's a very different sales proposition than it is to a haunter. Right. And so this is why demographic, you're breaking these into personas and knowing who's buying your stuff is important. I'll give you more examples. Okay. So, there's stuff like sliding gear and stuff that's made for actors. Okay. So just think about your haunt. Okay. How many of your actors are boomers? I would wager to say less than are younger, Gen Z, millennial, that age. That's my guess, right? Especially sliders. Okay. So if you're thinking about this, okay, then you're thinking about where are those people looking at stuff? Okay, they're probably looking at like TikTok. So like making sure that you have videos about your sliding gear on TikTok. That's probably important because that's where the people who are buying it are. However, if you are like, let's take distortions, and you are making very expensive stuff. Like I think most of the haunt team is probably not going to be buying any of those because it's too expensive. It's probably going to be the owners. So where are the owners? We know where the owners are. They're on Facebook. Like they're just on Facebook, right? Like as a demographic, most of the haunt community as a whole is on Facebook. But you can break it down and say, okay, where specifically do the actors hang out in Facebook? Where do the owners hang out in Facebook?
Okay.
Who watches Transworld Live? You know what I mean? Like it's generally not, I think, too many of the actors and too many of those is generally the older people. Who goes to the networking mixer at Transworld? Not the actors that don't have money to pay for it. I mean, sorry, that's what it is. I mean, you gotta just think about where these people are putting their attention and meet them there at those moments, right? There was a vendor that I see. This is so funny. Also, I feel like I try. So I made all these videos for haunters in my big Transworld vendor review, right? And the content I made for them was for a lot of them the first videos they've ever had, which is crazy to me because you would think that that even now, no matter what your demographic is, that the first thing on your website would be like a video about what your product is and how it's used. But most of the haunters don't have that. So ours was kind of like the first thing anyone's really had, and then it was hard for me to even get a hold of them to add them as collaborators on their Facebook pages. And you're just like, why? Are they deliberately trying to lose sales? And then I did have a vendor, right, who doesn't use Facebook, but we just talked about, just look at how many haunters are on Facebook. So if you're selling to haunters, that are active in these communities and you don't use it, I don't know what you're doing, right? So I had to point him to his video that has over 100,000 views on my channel, and people are asking about buying it, and he's not answering them. Okay, so like I don't know, man. I could rant about this for a long time, but I'm gonna wrap up on the whole vendor thing by just being like, go back to your basics, make your personas, understand where they spend their time, understand also like what persona your product falls, and then that will tell you kind of what channels you can be on, and where they are. And then beyond that, I would say just make sure you have your basics, right? You need to have pictures of your shit. Like, I'm sorry, right? You need to have pictures of your stuff. You need to have, if it's a software, you need to have like a video explainer of what it is. I mean, like, there's some basics that you need to get taken care of. Basics like, do you have an email list? Do you have a text list? Do you have a basic explainer? Do you have basic pictures, right? Of what the thing is you're buying? Can you see it? All that stuff. And then from there, you can look at your personas and figure out where you should be making like the individual content for it. But anyway, I don't want to get too ranty.
You ranty? No.
I know. I'm trying to control myself, guys.
No, it's good. It's good. We lots of good information. It's 8:53. We're gonna try to go till 9 o'clock. So one last question. See, what's a good addition to add to increase revenue that you have seen work? This is Sandy from Phil Screams.
Oh yeah, Phil Screams. Yeah.
I think that's what she's.
So I actually think Phil Screams. Well, if it is Phil Screams, I think Field of Screams. Yeah, in MT, Field of Screams, Montana. Yeah. So actually, I think what Sean is doing over there at Scarehouse Windsor is a great thing. I think basically what we call it is velvet ropes. So sorry, I'm gonna take a step back. Okay, back to your personas. Who is coming to your haunt? Okay, what do they want? How much money do they have? Right? Are you attracting enough people? Are you attracting enough childless millennials that would pay for a velvet rope? And a velvet rope is something where, like a fast pass, and like something that Sean is doing at Scarehouse Windsor is Sean is doing like 3-course really good dinners that have actors and story and a whole thing, before the haunt opens. And then they get a fast pass, but I'd wager that, families of 4 or like teenagers are not buying those things. So part of it is about back to your personas and your demographics. Who is coming to your haunt? Is there enough of a demographic of like childless, like Disney adults or whatever, people that have a little bit more disposable income? And what are they interested in? Are they interested in skipping the line? Are they interested in upsells? Are they interested in VIP experiences, tours? The Child's Day that we added to Hush, that was a huge success, because there were a lot of parents that dropped their kids off, or parents in that region and whatever that wanted still to do something with the haunt, or they had younger kids or whatever, but they didn't want to go to the main haunt. So adding the Children's Day opens it up to that entire demographic, and lets us to double sell that day. Basically, like we can sell a whole event where we don't have to do anything but hand out candy. You just open the haunt, hand out candy, and then so I can double sell my inventory, right? Then at night we can open up, and then also the bar passes, adding alcohol, right? Like that adds the stuff, doing fast passes. There's all sorts of ways you can, like Sean does, add a dinner experience. You can do fast passes. You can do immediate passes. You can do VIP tours, and even some of these things you can test with very little risk. So like, I remember Spencer over at Fear Factory. They have like a VIP influencer package or whatever they call it, like the VVVIP, right? Like a top, like royal package. And it basically is like, I think it's a lot. I think it's like 3 or 4 times the price of the ticket. But, basically they'll give you a number to text. You could like text Spencer directly, and then they will meet you like outside and like personally walk you to like the front of the line, and you get a picture with whatever character you want. You get merch, you get this whole like personalized experience. And the thing with those is it's like zero risk, because if you sell one, it's worth the time to pull one of your other staff members and let them just walk them around, right? Like VIP tours. There's no reason we shouldn't be selling VIP tours, because if they don't sell, we're not losing money. And if they do sell, it pays for someone's wages for an entire night or more, ideally, and I think he didn't sell that many of those packages, but I think he did sell like 2 or 3. I mean, more than he thought he would, right? And that's just extra bank, and all it is just moving them ahead because they want to feel special. And I think sometimes you get those people who are willing to pay X amount more. But I would analyze all of this really at your different things. What do they want? The easiest stuff is like, do you have food? And then just like Disney does, there's also a talk on Green Tag. We just talked about um, something that like takeaways from a Disney session from the VP of Disneyland Resort, and she talks about the strategy of good, better, best when it comes to food. So sometimes you just want something good. That's like chicken fingers because you got kids, they don't care. Just give them chicken fingers. Fine. Good. Okay. Better would be like we're gonna get the cool themed hot dog that is like a Korean fried cheese dog or like a little spooky donut, and that's great. And then we're gonna get best, which is the like smoking cocktail thing that comes in like a souvenir coffin, and you're like, oh my God, like I'm drinking out of a coffin. I'm like a vampire. I mean, like, right? Get these good, better, best things. I would say, the basics should be looking at making sure you have the fast passes, the immediate passes, looking at your pricing of your food and making sure you have good, better, best, checking that you have some basic merch sales and those kind of things set up that are themed to the environment, to the story, that draw back, that because it's not going to be a souvenir unless it's actually like impactful, to the guest, right? So also at Hush, each year we make a different like bottle opener or wine opener, and it is like hand sculpted by one of our makeup artists, and it is like a character. It's like the new character that we introduce every year. We make him into like a bottle opener that's hand sculpted, and then those things are like printed during the week and hand painted, right? I mean, that's a cool souvenir, right? Right? Like that's the thing, Okay, that was a lot. Hi, Sandy.
We got some last minute questions. You wanna take them or
I don't mind. That's fine. Yeah.
okay? Um, Christine Campbell, these are all great suggestions. We are partnering with our local historical village. Any suggestions for working together on the marketing piece? They have a marketing staff, and I'm a biologist who's learned marketing from listening to all of your podcasts.
Well,
Obviously they are experts, but I feel like we are bringing lots of haunt specific. We will offer a joint event with us providing a full scare experience and then providing a family friendly experience. How can we split the audiences and not cannibalize or dilute the perception of the experience for both of those experience options? Same ticket and you get all the experiences, but the interest areas are different.
I'm a little unclear about the ticket option on that. Like, is it going to be one combined ticket where you get
It says
or
same
two.
ticket, and you get all the experiences.
I might, in that case, that's one of those things where I might rethink that a little bit because I think you don't want to overwhelm them with choices, but I think in that case, it might be something where you could do like a 1, 2, 3 option, like option one is this, option two is this, and option three is everything you get included. But it might that in that case might help to have a lower option where if somebody only wants the scary thing, then they can get the scary thing. If somebody only wants the education, then they can get that. And then it raises the perceived value, right? Threes are powerful, groups of three, good, better, best, having like, 1, 2, 3 tier thing, velvet ropes, like even you see this with Universal having like general and then they have express and then they have tours. So it's like 90 minutes, 45 minutes, or 0 minutes, right? And so I think having that is but in terms of breaking up the personas, I would again go back to like what audiences you have access to. And so I would say like you probably have access to the scary audiences. So I think you should work on the scary portion of the marketing stuff, and they have probably the rest of the audience, and they should work on selling it in that way. And I think you could provide to each other some assets that could help with it, but you want to retool it to be to that different audience. So, for example, your message is going to be like scary first. It's going to be like scary, and then if you want to stick around, you can get educated. And theirs is going to be learn about this haunt, and then you get to experience it, right? So you're going to want to flip them depending on the audience demographic. But I would just kind of split it depending on who has what demographic already they already have, and then I would share assets. So they're going to probably need some video of your haunt if they're going to make something or photos or stuff they're going to need to use, and then vice versa. You're probably going to need some assets from them to the not scary section.
And what are some ways to find out what your guests want?
Well, That's the age-old question, isn't it? Right?
If we knew
Surveys.
that, we'd be
I,
rich marketers.
I
Yeah, if we knew that,
as a co-owner, I stayed in the queue line a lot and just
yep,
listened and asked questions
yep,
and
yep.
talked to people. Is what I did.
And again at Gantum, this is something that we struggle with all the time because sometimes your customer really doesn't know and you like they can't tell you specifically what they want. They just kind of like want like a genre, right? Like who is gonna for example, who is gonna say they want like a better cell phone or they want a better, horse and carriage, right? That's the old example of the car, right? A Ford, right? Like so I do think I think you need to work kind of like two approaches hand in hand. You need to talk to people and you need to just suss out the vibe. Like you just need to like you kind of you need to be connected, I think, to what's going on and talk to people casually or not, look at like what's selling, what people's interested in, all that kind of stuff to get those ideas, to get real-time feedback, from people and write it down. Like don't just like kind of do it anecdotal. Even if you just have a little thing on your phone where it's like every time somebody asks about a fast pass, you put a check mark, right? And then you're like, okay, enough people have asked and we think this is good. I also think though you need to combine that with the other side of things, which is understanding what your customers come to you for and where the market opportunity is that you could create something else that like that reaches that, right? So I think, in the past, we used to just make haunts that were like one and done. Like, you pay, it was all about like kind of like the restaurant model, like butts and seats. It was all about throughput, right? Get them in, get the turnstile, get them out of your parking lot because we don't have parking, and make sure they can leave. And then we can turn over the parking, right? I think increasingly we are realizing nowadays, especially, that people are coming to haunts because they want to be entertained and they want a value,
Mhm.
because otherwise they could just get Netflix. I mean, right? It needs to be value and entertainment. It needs to be like a whole night experience. And that gives you options for upselling. But what if you don't have the parking for that? Right? I mean, like, it really is like so that's an example of something that like the guest might not tell you that, but it's about understanding again why they're coming to you. Why are they even going to a haunted house? To hang out with their friends and to be entertained. And in order then to do that, you need to provide decompression areas, food, and then you need extended parking and those kind of things. So I think you need to have both of these strategies kind of working in tandem. And then I do think you need to test as well. Like I think you need to test. Like I think, don't don't buy a whole commercial kitchen and do a whole menu before testing if somebody with a hot dog cart makes any sales, right? You like you need to just start testing out some stuff. Did this do well? What did and kind of getting feedback, on some of these things, and then like go from there. But generally, people like can't. I'll give you a nice little thing to wrap up this answer. It was really too long. People are really bad at predicting, but they're really good at telling you what they don't like.
Mhm.
So when you are talking to them, you shouldn't be like, what would you like to see next year? You should be like, what did you hate about this year? What
Mm.
did you not enjoy about the haunt? What did you do something else? What did you hate about that? What do you dislike about watching Netflix? What do you dislike about the local bar? What do you dislike about these things or whatever? And you ask them those questions on what they dislike, why they didn't buy a ticket, why they didn't stay with their kids at your haunt or, whatever. You ask why they made the negative choices, and then you kind of figure out what they're looking for and where the market opening is. And then you're like, here.
Right. See a need, fill a need.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Ah,
Okay. What
and Sa-
else?
and Sandy was she was also like, well, apparently her guests want movie characters, but we try to stay away from movie
Yep,
characters.
exactly.
I mean, could you have like maybe a famous movie character come out and do autographs one night or something
Yeah.
or something?
So
But
that's a really awkward one because I think that gets more into like horror convention sort of like realm. But in Sandy's case, they're kind of in the middle of nowhere. Like they're like the thing in that area, and so I
mhm.
can see why because they almost have no competition that people might be coming to them for things like that. But you can do parodies, right? So you could always do instead of Michael Myers, you come with a different name. Like Michael Slasher is coming out, and whatever, posing for pictures behind a bush with you or something. I mean, you could do like fun parody things like that. if she means like an actual movie character, like an actor, you could. There are plenty of haunts that do that. There are so many haunts that do like, meet X celebrity night, and most of those celebrities just have a minimum fee. So they just have like a booking fee, and you just book them, and then usually you negotiate for whether they're going to charge for headshots and charge for signatures or not, and how much they're going to charge. But generally, it's a booking fee, and then plus or minus the fee they charge to do photos or signings.
In her case, I guess like in the Scarecrow, and not like a horror character, with filled a screen, it might
Yeah.
work. And
That's where you have your own iconic character that build up over years and become the celebrities themselves.
Okay,
right.
yeah. So if she means your own characters, that's usually what I recommend.
I don't think she did, but that's another alternative is
Oh,
to
okay, yeah,
develop
yeah.
your own.
Right.
I think generally, again, people are coming to haunts to be entertained, and so, just if you have a character that resonates with them, that character should spend most of its time just taking pictures with people. Like,
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
really, that's a much better use of funds than
If you elevate your own cast to the level of a movie character in the customer's eyes, they become a movie character, even though they don't have,
yeah.
3 movies. So
Well, like at the Dead Factory, we had the only movie or the horror movie character we had was Freddy, because my 65-year-old dad wouldn't play anything else but Freddy. So he had a silicone mask and the glove and the sweater and the hat. He did a good job. So he was in an alleyway with barrels, and he jumped out, and he was kind of like in Freddy alleyway, and it worked. And people were expected to see him every year, So it was like he was held on for like 4 years. So it worked out like. And I know other people have used them in the past, and yes, don't advertise them, don't put them on your stuff. Because will would a movie ever, would a movie house ever come try to sue you for using Freddy in the haunt? Don't know, but it'd
Yeah,
probably
don't
like
risk
it'd
it.
be probably like a
yeah.
stop and cease thing where like, hey, stop using him. Okay, fine,
Yeah,
stop.
you definitely can't use the name, and even using the likeness is like also protected. So everything has to be parodied,
Right.
So, I think the best way to do it would just be like take the characteristics of what they're known for and parody them, So yeah,
But don't make it a Timu or a Wish
yeah, yeah,
character.
Right.
yeah.
Don't say, come out and see Freddy. This guy his
Frederick.
my blade.
Okay. Is there anything else that came in on Facebook? I know Craig has a question.
Yeah, answer Craig's real quick, and then
Yeah, so Craig asked if there's places where there's a list of resources. The answer, Craig, is like everywhere and nowhere. Like, oh my God, I've spent so much time testing out different AI tools that like it's exhausting. Like it's honestly exhausting just the amount of tools that are out there. And I feel like every day there's a new one. There is an AI marketing podcast that's run by Social Media Examiner. I go to their conference every year, Social Media Marketing World, and they have a podcast just about AI tools. That's pretty good and it's free. There's also like AI Explained, which is like a newsletter sorry, AI Advantage, which is a newsletter that discusses different tools. But honestly, you're gonna just have to test them. Like that's what I've been doing. And like I don't know how many like market themselves as AI video editing tools. And maybe they could be useful for some situations, but for what I do, like it's not gonna work at all. Right? Like it's not working, So yeah, I think a lot of it is testing and yeah, but it's crazy, man. It's just like there's so many new tools, and there's also like there's a bunch of YouTube channels that also like test out the tools for you, but a lot of the YouTube channels are literally like AI avatars like explaining AI tools to you, and you're just looking at this and you're like, is this how the world ends?
Yeah.
what is the best way to run the fast pass without making general admission mad?
Does it matter if general admission's mad?
Just makes them want to buy a fast pass, right?
Yeah.
So
I that's gonna right? Like
it's a catch 20. Yeah, it's
I think that's a question that comes down to your individual throughput, right? At your individual haunt. And how, how much they feel about the lines, and really when it gets too much or too little, you're gonna have to test it. But I mean, like again, look at Halloween Horror Nights. I mean, some of those wait times are like 3 hours, for one haunt, and it's just like if you just have one haunt, it's harder to pull off because then, that's the whole experience and people are like upset about it. Also, if your line is not entertaining, that's also harder. But if it's, if it's like Basement of the Dead, you got like a party going on, the line is fun to be in. I think you could push it a little bit harder. If you have like Field of Screams in Pennsylvania, they have multiple haunts and a midway. And so if one is a little bit longer, then it's mitigated, right? Because people can do other things. So I think all those things are going to impact what you can do. But not to be a dick, but like, does it matter? I mean, I don't know. It only matters if it loses you sales, and that's a terrible answer, but like, it's kind of true, right? Like, yeah.
I know what the Dead Factory did, and a lot of other haunts are doing, are creating like a midway experience. So
Yeah,
you're not really, your guests aren't really waiting 2 hours anymore. They're
yeah,
showing up, they're getting bonfire, they're getting their hot dogs or their s'mores kits, they're listening to music, they're chilling, they're hanging out with friends while they're waiting on their ticket, their number to pop up, and and they go in. So I know fast passes still exist. I was the one that always bought them, so I like fast passes because it's usually just me and the wife, and I can afford an extra $20, and here we go. But I understand a lot of people can't, so I know it's always still a thing. So I know a lot of
yep,
people are using virtual queue line. It's kind of the same thing.
yep.
Just kind of waiting. Dead Factory, all they did was put a big LED board with their number on there. You get a keychain that has a number on it, and when your keychain pops up, that's when you go in the door. So
Yep.
something simple like that. Well, it's 9:15, Philip. I know you probably need drink some more coffee and get all geared up for whatever you do next. And tell us, everybody, where they can find you, where they can stalk you, where they can contact you
Everywhere. I mean,
everywhere.
I'm sure you all know. You see me on Facebook, and then Haunted Attraction Network, hauntedattractionnetwork.com. I think that's our website, but I think generally the best place is to get on our email newsletter because it goes out every week. We put news in there, we put our new videos, and kind of everything we're doing is centralized there in the weekly basis. But I reply. You can reach me on Messenger or you can reach me on Instagram. All the basic ways. I'm in all the places.
And your podcast, you have two podcasts, right?
Oh yeah, so Daryl does our news every week. You can listen to Daryl on the Haunted Attraction Network podcast. I also put up interviews, like we have an interview with Sandy from Field of Screams, Montana, for winning the Oscars this year. So we have that podcast, and then I also co-host Green Tagged Theme Park in 30 with Scott Swenson. So you can just type Green Tagged anywhere and that one's more about the business side of the theme park industry, but I think there's a lot of things we talked about today you can get on that show too, because it's like the same thing about how you do pricing and kind of stuff, but it's just at a theme park versus a haunt, but haunts are part of that world too.
And what's the next show you're going to be?
I'll be at East Coast Haunters Convention in like 2 weeks. God, like 3 weeks or something. 2 weeks. Oh my God, 2 weeks.
Isn't it the 26th and 27th in Oaks, Pennsylvania? Am I correct on that?
Yes, but the tours begin on the 24th. So there's the pre-show tour on the 24th, then there's the tour on the 25th also, and there's so many events at this one. There's the Thursday we're doing two haunts, Friday we're doing haunts, Saturday there's the party at Halloween Nights Eastern State. There's a Hershey Park tour, and there's a show floor. It's gonna be wild. I'm flying on the 23rd because I need to be there like ahead of time for the haunts. So I'll be there. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, I heard it's the place to be.
It's fun. I mean, it's for last year was for a first year show was incredible. I think this is just gonna get better, and I love Hershey, and it's gonna be cool to see that and see Eastern Halloween Nights at Eastern State. It's crazy. A lot of stuff
Yeah,
planned. So
a lot
I'll
of
see
stuff
you all
going
there if
on.
you're there.
All right, guys. Well, appreciate all your questions, Philip. Thank you for your time. I know you're a busy man. We try to get you on at least once a year, so
Yeah,
because a lot of stuff happens in happens over 12 months.
yeah, too much, too much.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
But the more it changes, the more it stays the same.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's a big circle. Sums it up right there.
Oh, it's pendulum. Okay. Thanks.
All right, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank to all our guests that showed up tonight. And I hope everybody that does get to watch this, that it wasn't live tonight, that gets to watch this in the future. I hope you picked up some good information as much as the people who were here on Facebook. And thank you.
If you want to rewatch this, go back to Facebook, Connor's Toolbox Group. We'll pin it to the top. It'll be you can participate in the chat box down there and answer the questions and see what everyone else said and reply to. And if you're on our email list at hunterstoolbox.com, if you're a member over there, this will be in your email. So stay tuned. All right, guys. Thanks again. Signing off.
Bye.
Take care.
This podcast episode sponsored by Scarett Badges. Get your Scarett Badges at scarebadges.com. Also sponsored by Hunter's Toolbox. Take your haunt to the next level at hunterstoolbox.com. Thank you for listening to Haunt Topic Radio. Please leave a comment wherever you found this podcast. Each comment you leave will help spread the word to other haunters around the world. See you next time.